All right, guys, today we're going to start a brand new chapter. We're going to take a look at chapter 14 from the pre-calculus book. It's our stats unit. You should have picked up a notes packet from either the substitute or perhaps the substitute had it on the table as you walked into the room. We're going to start with section 14.2. We will eventually come back to section 14.1. Mrs. Susong and I just felt like section 14.2 would be a good lesson for you guys to start with since we're not here both today and tomorrow. So we're going to have you find section 14.2. It's called Measures of Central Tendency. In your notes packet, there's going to be a day 1 and a day 2. We're going to do both of those days today. Right? So go ahead and flip to that part in your notes packet. Everybody will have a notes packet for this chapter because we'll get to quite a few word problems and such. And today we're ultimately going to be talking about mean, median, and mode. And this is ultimately why Mrs. Susong and I decided that today's lesson would be, that this would be a good lesson for you guys for today, because many of you have heard of mean, median, and mode before. All right, I want you to go ahead and scroll down, or I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to find example number 1. And we're going to talk about how to do a problem where we have to find the mean. Let me go ahead and move my screen down here. Example number 1 says, find the mean of the set 36.8, 29.5, 29.1, 33.3, 30.0, 20.7, and 39.5. So what I'm going to have you do right here is go ahead and take out your graphing calculator, or take out a calculator. And I want you to type all of those numbers into your graphing calculator on a regular blank screen. All right? While you guys are doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and write down all of these numbers on my screen right up here. I'm not actually going to use my calculator for this. I want you to take 36.8, 29.5, 29.1, 33.3, 30.0, 20.7, and 39.5. And I want you to add all of those up on your blank screen. When you add all of those up, you should get 218.9. Now, that's what they might all add up to, but we want to find something called the mean. The mean is also known as the average. Okay, you can kind of come up here and go ahead and label that the average. We're going to have a lot of definitions this chapter, and this is just the first one of many for this chapter. So mean means average. We're going to take all of those numbers there, add them up, and we want to divide by 7 because we had 7 total numbers. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So take your calculator, and now that you got 218.9, we want you to divide that by 7. And you may not get a perfect answer here, but the number that you're going to come closest to is 31.27. That's the number that we would say is our mean. And we have a special symbol for that in this chapter. The mean has this symbol called x bar. So go ahead and put x bar equals 31.27. And you just found the average for those 7 numbers. Okay? All right, go ahead and shift gears. Take a look at example 1.5. We're going to do something similar. That's why it's called example 1.5, but it does have a little bit of a twist to it. Okay? So let me scroll up here. Take a full look at this. It's a spin on a question that a lot of you guys ask about your individual classes. Sometimes it's about math class, physics class, English, whatever. It says, suppose you got the following test scores: 76%, 82%, 70%, and 83%. So far you've taken 4 tests: 76, 82, 70, and 83. What would you need to get on your 5th test to have a test average of 80? Well, if I take that 5th test and I want a test average of 80, 80 times 5 means that I need to have a total of 400 test points. After I take that 5th test, I need 400 total test points in order to have an average of 80. But right now I've only taken 4 tests, and I've gotten a 76, an 82, a 70, and an 83. So let's go ahead and add up how many test points I have currently. Grab your graphing calculator again, and I want you to add up 76, plus 82 plus 70 plus 83. Right now, you have a total of 311 test points. And that's after just 4 tests. Well, you want that 5th test to bring your average up to an 80%, and that's where we said you needed 400 total test points by that point in time. So if this is my goal, and this is how many I currently have, I want to take my goal, 400, and I want to subtract how many test points I currently have, which is that 311. 400 take away 311 is 89. I need an 89% on my 5th test in order to accumulate 400 total test points. So 89% is the final answer right here to example 1.5. Okay? You know what you want your average to be, so you've got to figure out what that 5th test score is. All right? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at example number 2. We're going to do a baseball example here. We're going to use Babe Ruth's data. Some of you know who Babe Ruth is. He played baseball for the New York Yankees. Babe Ruth was a big-time home run hitter. So it says between 1918 and 1931, Babe Ruth led the American League in home runs 12 times. Okay, and you can see the 12 different years where he led the league in home runs. You'll notice that 1922 isn't there because he didn't lead the league in home runs that year. So we don't have it listed. We've got 1918 all the way to 1931. We've got some different things that we need to do here on example number 2. We've got an A, a B, a C, and a D. Example A, or part A, says, find the mean of the data. Right? So what I want you to do is I want you to take your graphing calculator and I want you to type all 12 of these numbers into your blank screen. I want you to find out what the total is, and then I want you to divide by 12 because that's the number of years where he led the league in home runs. So I'm going to go ahead and pause right here for just a moment. I want you to add all those numbers up and then divide by 12. All right, so here's what I got. I took my graphing calculator, I typed in all of those numbers. If I hit enter, you should get 542 total home runs. Okay, if you got a number different than 542, even if you're off by a little bit, you need to go back and make sure that you re-enter those numbers back in. But I'm going to take 542, and I'm going to divide by 12. So 542 divided by 12. And ultimately, that's going to give me my average. Babe Ruth hit an average of about 45.167 home runs per year. In all of those years where he led the league, he had an average of 45.17. So let me come over here to my Word document, and we would say that our average, our X bar, is 45.17. Okay? Now in letter B, you're going to notice that it asks for a different thing. Letter B says find the median of the data. The median means the middle. You might remember that from middle school, or if you did this a little bit during freshman year Algebra 1, median means middle. What we need to do is we need to take all of those years where Babe Ruth led the league in home runs, and we need to line those numbers up from smallest to largest. So I'm going to use some of the space right down here. I'm going to go through, and I know you can't see all of the numbers right now, but that's why you have a notes packet, and you're going to number all of the years, or list off all of the numbers of home runs from least to greatest. You'll notice that one year he had 11. Then the next smallest number is 29. Then there was a year where he had 41. And after 41, he had 3 years where he had 46 home runs. So I'm going to go ahead and put 46, 46, 46. And I need to make sure that I list that 3 times. There's a year where he had 47, a year where he had 49. Then there were 2 years of 54. Go ahead and put 54 twice. then there's 2 more years. We had a year where Babe Ruth had 59 home runs, and a year where Babe Ruth had 60 home runs. Right? Those are all 12 years. You can go ahead and count them. Make sure you have all 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Always a good idea to count, so you make sure that you have all of them listed. And the median asks for the middle. So what I'm going to have you do, what you might remember if you've ever done this before, is you're going to go ahead and cross off the first and the last. And we're going to keep working our way toward the middle. So if I cross off 11 and 60, then I cross off 29 and 59, 41 and 54, the first 46 and the first 54 get crossed off, then you've got 46 and 49. Now we've got a bit of a unique situation because I have 2 middle numbers. If I cross both of those off, all of a sudden I don't have a middle anymore. But if you've got 2 middle numbers, what you're going to do is you're going to take both of those numbers and you're going to add them up. Okay? I want you to go ahead and take 46 and add 47, and I want you to divide by 2. I want you to find the average of those 2 middle numbers because that's going to help us out with our median. Okay? 46 plus 47 equals 93. And then if you take 93 and you divide by 2, you're going to get a middle number of 46.5. Probably didn't have to go through all of that math, but sometimes the numbers aren't as easy as what they are right here for Babe Ruth's example. So in between 46 and 47, we found an average of 46.5. Our median right now, our answer for letter B, MED, equals 46.5. Median doesn't have a fancy symbol like mean does with that X bar. You're just going to put MED for median. Okay? Then on letter C, it asks you to find the mode. Mode stands for most. Okay? Out of all of those years where Babe Ruth led the league, we want to know which number worked out to be the largest number in the league, the greatest number of times. And you might notice that as we had them listed right here from smallest to greatest, Babe Ruth had 3 years where he had 46 home runs. He had 2 years where he had 54 home runs, but that's not the most. Okay? Sure, it's a bigger number, but that only happened twice, and 46 happened 3 times. So 46 would be the mode. With mode, there's not a fancy symbol for that either. I'm just going to go ahead and put mode equals 46. Again, because that happened 3 different years. Letter D, the last problem here, says state which measures of central tendency seem most representative of the set of data. And then we want you to explain. So as you take a look at the 3 different measures of central tendency right here, mean, median, and mode, which one seems to work out or describe Babe Ruth's home runs the best? And what I would encourage you to do, I realize all 3 of these numbers are really close, but what I would encourage you to do is to realize that we had 1 year where 11 home runs led the league. 11 was a lot smaller than most of these other numbers. And so what happened when that 11 got worked in there is that 11 dropped his average down quite a bit. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and say that out of the 3 different measures of central tendency, that the median and the mode were probably the best ones to use to describe all of Babe Ruth's home runs those 12 years. Okay? So let's put median and mode are best. I need to erase some of this here. Be patient with me. Because a low number doesn't affect them. Okay? So you can make a good case for the median or the mode. We're going to go ahead and say right now for this example that the median and the mode are both pretty good. All right? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at example number 3. I'm going to leave this screen and go to example number 3. It's the last problem for day 1, and it talks about stem and leaf plots. Having taught this lesson before, I think a lot of you have practiced with stem and leaf plots, whether it's in biology if you do something there, or if it's in Algebra 1, or maybe even from middle school science. So I'm hopeful that you're comfortable with stem and leaf plots. And we've got quite a few pieces of data here. It talks about the following are the grades scored on a quiz with 50 possible points. And you can see all of the different numbers there for the students in that class. Some students did really well, some students did not so well. Part A says make a stem and leaf plot of the quiz results. All right, so let me go ahead and bump this up a little bit so that you can see only example number 3. And one of the first things that would be smart for me to do is to find the median. Okay? Or excuse me, not necessarily to find the median, but to go ahead and number all of these off from least to greatest. Right? So you'll notice right here as you take a look at the numbers, the student that did the worst in the class got a 10 on the quiz. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and mark down 10 and I'm going to circle it. Just in case I have to come back and read it, I don't want to scribble over it. So a 10 was the lowest score. Then there was a 19. There was a 20. Let's go ahead and find out where that 20 is at, and we'll go ahead and list it after the 19. There was a 25. There was a 30. 2 32s. I'm going to stop circling them up at top so I make sure I get them all listed. 2 32s, a 36, 2 37s, a 38 and a 39, three 40s, 40, 40, 40. There were also 3 41s. I want to make sure that I list all of the 41s. So 41, 41, 41. It looks like I'll have to come down here to the next line, because after 41 there was a student that scored a 42 in the class. There was a 43, a 47, a 48, 2 49s, and then one student got a perfect score. One student got a 50, right? That should be all of the students in the class. As you get ready to make your stem and leaf plot, it's important to have all of these in order because we want to know what our stems are and what our leaves are. So I'm going to go ahead and start making a stem and leaf plot right here, and I want to go ahead and label it quiz scores. Now I'm going to have a stem column and a leaf column. Now my stems are going to be all of the tens digits. You notice that we had scores in the teens, we had scores in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. So those are going to be all of my stems. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. My scores in the tens were 10 and 19. So as I get ready to make my leaves, I want to do these in chronological order. This is important. This is stuff that you'll get graded on. I had a score at 10 and I had a score at 19. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 and then a 9. That stands for 1 0 is 10 and 1 9 is 19. We had a couple scores in the 20s as well. We had a 20 and a 25. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 0 right underneath the 0 for 20. I'm going to put the 5 right underneath the 9. What we want right here, guys, is clean columns. See how my 0s line up and my 9 and 5 line up? That'll help out later on. In the 30s, I have a bunch of scores there. I'm going to go ahead and start listing all of these leaves, and I want you to pay attention to how I make these nice clean columns. I have a 30, a couple of 32s, so 0, 2, 2, 36 and 2 37s, 6, 6. Oops, I'm sorry. There's only one 36. 2 37s. Let's try that again. So 1 6 and 2 7s, a 38 and a 39. So 1 8 and 1 9. We had a bunch of scores in the 40s. See right here, 40, 40, 40, and then 41, 41, 41. I'm going to list 0, 0, 0 for all of those 40s, and 1, 1, 1 for all of those 41s. And I've got some other numbers in the 40s as well, like 42, 43. Again, notice how I'm lining them all up. Okay, nice clean columns. 47, 48, and I've got two 49s. And then the last score down here, the last stem of 5, only has one leaf of 50. That was the student that got the perfect score. Once you're done making your stem and leaf plot, one of the important components is to do a key. This is like a legend, like you see on some maps. The key is going to use the first stem and the first leaf. We would go ahead and say that 1/0 means 10. All right, so it's important to have that over there as well. That's definitely part of your stem and leaf plot. And that takes care of part A. To find the mean, I want you to add all of those numbers up, and then you're going to divide by the total number of students that were in the class, the total number of quizzes that got graded. Right? So go ahead, and I want you to add all of these numbers up. I'm going to ask the substitute to go ahead and pause the video. I want you to go to your calculator and add all of these numbers up, and ultimately you're going to divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So go ahead and pause the video right here, add all of those numbers up, and then divide by 25. And what you should have gotten for the mean is 37.04. That was the class average on this quiz. Okay? If you do the median, I'm going to ask the substitute to pause the video again right here. And I want you to do the same thing as what we did before with the median. I want you to cross out the first and the last, the second one and the second to last one. And I want you to work your way all the way toward the middle. You should only have one middle number this time. It should be a little bit more obvious than before. So go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and find out what that median is. Now it turns out that this median was 40. One of those 40s ended up being the middle number. As far as your mode goes, remember we said that mode stood for most. We had a couple numbers that showed up the most often. Remember that you had 3 40s. That's why it's important to put these in columns. You can see 0, 0, 0 right here. And you can see, if I get a different color, 1, 1, 1 in that column. You had 3 40s and 3 41s. So you're allowed to have two modes. You have a mode of 40 and a mode of 41. Now look at part E. Part E says, what is a good representative number for the average of the quiz results? Now as you take a look at your 3 measures of central tendency, you got 37.04, you got a median of 40, and you got a mode of 40 and 41. So if I have to pick one of those numbers to represent all of them, I'm going to pick 40. And the reason why is because not only was it my median, but it also showed up as one of my modes. 40 is probably the best number to describe what happened in that class. Okay? All right, now that's the end of day 1. I want you to go ahead and find in your notes right now, section 14.2, day 2. Okay? Let me go ahead and get rid of this screen, and I'm going to scroll down here. One of the things that you're going to notice about section 14.2, day 2, is that we don't have all of the data. Like just a moment ago, we had all of the quiz scores for that class. We had 25 class members that took that quiz, and we found out some information about it. This time, we just have some categories. We have 30 basketball players and the average number of points that they scored during the season. So what we're trying to say right here, what this column what this table represents, is if you look at the third column right there, you'll see that one person scored between 10 and 12 points. we had 3 people average between 12 and 14 points. We had 5 people between 14 and 16, 12 in the next category, 5 in the next category, and 4 in the next category. And we don't know all of their actual averages. We just know that this is how many people were in each one of these categories. So what you're going to see right here is the second column where it's called class marks. Class marks is the middle of all of these groups right here. So in the middle of 10 and 12 is where we got the 11. In the middle of 12 and 14 is 13. In the middle of 14 and 16 is 15, and so on. That's where we got the 17, 19, and 21 for these different categories here. So since we don't know the actual numbers, we have to use a different method to find some of the things that they're asking us for. This example number 4 is asking us to find the mean. Now take a look at this last column out here, fx. The way that they got this fx column is by taking the x column and the f column and multiplying them together. So 11 times 1 is 11. 13 times 3 is 39. 15 times 5, 17 times 12, 19 times 5, and 21 times 4. What we want to do is we want to take that fx column and we want to add all of those numbers up. So go ahead and pause the video right now. I want you to add all of those numbers up on your calculator right now. All right, what you're going to notice is that you should have gotten a total of 508. 508 is the total of all 6 of these numbers. But unfortunately, it's not just 6 numbers, because we had 30 members that we were studying, 30 basketball players. I want you to take that 508 and divide by 30. Remember that in order to find an average, we take the total of all of the numbers and then we divide by the total number of students, or the total number of basketball players. So that's why we're dividing by 30, because that's how many players this represents. And what you're going to find is that this average right here, this x bar, is 16.93. Probably didn't come out to exactly 16.93, but that's where we're going to go ahead and round it off. All right? So 16.93 is the average. There's going to be some problems, guys, where you have to figure out what these class marks are. You're going to have to figure out the middle numbers of these different categories. You're going to have to multiply them by the F column. Okay, that's where we got this FX, remember. All right, last but not least, one more problem. Example number 5. I want you to go ahead and find example number 5, and it says, estimate the median of the data from the frequency distribution for example number 4. Okay? So unfortunately, I can't fit both of these on the screen at the same time, but since we don't know all of the pieces of data, here's how we're going to do this. Remember, median means middle. All right? We're going to take all of the class marks, the 11, the 13, the 15, the 17, the 19, and the 21, and we're going to list those as many times as what we had for the frequency. So look back up on example number 4, and you notice how the frequency for the first category was 1. That means I'm only going to list 111. And then we had 3 people in the second category, and the second category had a class mark of 13. So you're going to go ahead and list 13, 13, 13. Then we had 5 people in the third category, 15, 15, 15, 15, and 15. We had 12 people in the fourth category. Go ahead and put 17 12 times. We had 5 people in the 19 category. Go ahead and list 19 5 times. And we had 4 people in the 21 category. So 21, 21, 21, 21. And the very last thing that we're going to ask you to do here is we're going to have you go ahead and find the middle. So once again, go ahead and cross off the first one and the last one, the second one and the second to last one, and we want you to work your way toward the middle. You can go ahead and pause the video right now and find out what the median is for this set of data. All right, as you worked your way through right here, you should have found that your median was one of the number 17s. Okay? You ended up getting to a point right there where you had two 17s. And if you added those two 17s together and then divided by 2, since there were two 17s, 17 plus 17 is 34. 34 divided by 2 is where we're getting this 17. All right? So what we want you to do right now is to go ahead and use the rest of the time. We want you to do the homework for today. The homework is on the pre-calc book. It's page 904, 10 through 22 all, and then number 25. Tomorrow's going to be a worksheet day. You're going to get some pre-calc worksheets. We're going to ask you to do a slightly different assignment there. But for today, it's out of the pre-calc book, page 904, 10 through 22 all, and number 25. Make sure you do it on a separate sheet. Don't do it in that pre-calc book. We'll see you on Wednesday, guys.